Hello and welcome to the stream here today, where I'm joined once again by Conor McKenna. And today we're going to be continuing our GAA coverage. And this week is the opening weekend of the football championships. So we're going to run through the four provinces, and Conor's going to give us his insight, some thoughts on what he thinks may happen in the matches this weekend. So I think probably the best place to start in this particular weekend, just looking at the fixtures, is Ulster. There's a couple of big games in Ulster this weekend, so I think it's probably the most interesting. So you should be able to see the fixtures there at the bottom. We'll just go through them with Connor, sort of as they're scheduled. So the first game is actually the preliminary round game between Monaghan and Cavan, which obviously is a bit of a derby game for that part of the world. So how do you see that one working out, Connor?
Yeah, Gerry, that'll be an interesting affair. I don't know, is there two teams in Ireland who don't like each other as much as Monaghan and Cavan? It's really a heated derby, to say the least. It's up there with Kerry and Cork maybe, and Mayo Galway. But I don't know, I'd say Monaghan will be happier. They've stayed up in Division One again. They were promoted in 2014 and they've been up there ever since. Cavan have had spells in Division One. It hasn't really worked out for them at all, and now they're down in Division Three, so they're coming off a very, very disappointing league campaign, particularly the end of the campaign. They were going fairly okay pre-lockdown. They stopped there, but the momentum kind of halted when Clare beat them in back in March. But then they played Kildare in a few weeks ago, lost that game, then lost for Roscommon, who were missing a lot of players the weekend. So it's not maybe going very rosy from a Cavan perspective. Monaghan then, on the other hand, they were going fairly well before the lockdown, and then they probably haven't had a great start either. They lost to Kerry, and in the scheme they put up a good enough show 2 weeks ago, but then they played Meath last weekend. Didn't beat Meath. Now they needed a draw to stay up. They got the point. They got the bare minimum. Now staying up was probably the target for Monaghan and Seamus McEnany. It's his first spell back. It's first year back at the helm in the Farney County. When Malachy O'Rourke did a very, very good job when he was there from 2014 or 2013, I think, until last year. So Monaghan, like, they have serious players within their ranks. Conor McManus is a great footballer, a great free taker. Rory Beggan is likewise. He's a great goalkeeper and a great free taker. And like McEnany is a good coach. You have Conor Lavery's in with him from Kilcoo, is very, very good. Peter Donnelly, I think, is that his name, from Tyrone, there, strength and conditioning coach as well. So they're in a very, very good place, Monaghan, this weekend. They have I think they have I think Colin Walsh and Niall Kearns might be absent, but they have a full panel apart from that. And like, from 1 to 15, there's not really a weak league in the Monaghan team, and they look to take full advantage this weekend. Cavan, on the other hand, they're missing a few this year. They haven't really had a great start. Mickey Graham, that is a very good coach, but he might have something up his sleeve. He seems to always have something up his sleeve for these big championship encounters, but I think Monaghan might just edge them this weekend.
I think Monaghan's kind of one of them teams where they always seem to make a good account of themselves in Ulster, and certainly, as you say, their Division One status has been secure for a few years now, and looking good. Obviously, it's a pity for the two teams, that they have to play Antrim in the next round, because obviously, they'll be on the hammer into nothing there, but in all seriousness, I think just the sort of the draw, I think Monaghan's got a very good chance of being in an Ulster final this year. But I think certainly they are the favourites to win this game. Moving on to the next one, and in my opinion, this game, like, if circumstances were different, and this ended up being an All Ireland final, there's certainly two counties that are up there. Donegal and Tyrone. It's a pity, that one team's going to be one and done after this one. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, that'll be probably, well, I think that'll be on paper the game of the weekend. Probably hurling or football will be that Tyrone and Donegal game this weekend. But yeah, it's a pity that they've gone out in one sense, but also it leads to a great spectacle this weekend. Like realistically, while it is a pity that we won't have one of those teams left after this weekend, if this was a normal year with a backdoor, it would be a great game, but it wouldn't attract that do or die attention that this does. That kind of way. Like this, if Donegal were to win this game, they haven't just won an All Ireland quarter or an Ulster quarter final even, but they've they've knocked out Tyrone. And likewise, if Tyrone win this game, not only will they be in another semi-final, but they'll have knocked out the team who won the last two Ulster Championships, like out of the championship completely. So I think that this weekend, that game is going to be an absolute thriller of a game this weekend. If you look at Donegal, Paddy McBrearty is a slight injury out, but the word coming is that he's going to be fit to play this weekend. And McBrearty is just an absolutely super footballer. Like him and Michael Murphy are, if you were going to put down the team with the best 15 players in Ireland, the two of those lads would be in it. And to be honest with you, I'd say Owen Bon Gallagher in the defence would nearly probably be in that as well. So Donegal are three or four players who are absolutely outstanding, and they have a very, very good manager in Declan Bonner there. Like Bonner has been there, done that, and he's really come back. He's kind of given them a real boost of positive energy, playing very, very vibrant attacking football. They have really, really talent within the ranks, and like Carl Lacey is in with him he's a very, very shrewd defensive coach. Stephen Rochford is in with him. He's a very, very shrewd attacking coach. So like there's not a weak link in the Donegal setup or on the pitch or off the pitch. Like so I think Donegal really are a team to watch this year. Tyrone on the other hand Tyrone, they'll always be very, very strong, Tyrone, no matter what anyone says. Mickey Hart there, he's been there since 2003. He's been written off a lot of times, and he always can deliver that one result out of the bag, like in Castlebar last weekend. So, look, for both these teams, securing Division 1 status was their first priority, but they'd also want championship to come with it. And, like, my namesake, Conor McKenna, is back, and he's been super football in Tyrone at the moment. Like, he's really got a huge, huge hype about him. Like, I'd say there hasn't been this much hype of a player maybe since David Clifford came on the scene a few years ago. Like, and he's delivered in the first few appearances back. And if you look at the players who've gone to the AFL, he's made an awful lot of appearances. And it's very, very few players have made as many appearances. Like an awful lot of lads go out to Australia, but very, very few really make many appearances in the AFL as opposed to the VFL. And he's really made an awful lot of appearances in the AFL, has Conor McKenna. So the Tyrone team then, like Morgan is a great goalkeeper as well. And like they haven't really got a weakness in the side either. Like they might have said in other years, they haven't got maybe the potence in the forward line, but Darren McCurry up there with Conor McKenna in the forwards is very strong. Conor Myler is a good addition too, but the very industrial players too, like Matty Donnelly's coming strong in the defence, and like I think Tyrone will be up against, but I think Donegal might just edge it. But whoever wins this game could go a very, very long way in the championship.
What do you think? Obviously, Donegal got the better of Tyrone there. Was it 2 weeks ago? I think it was. Do you think they'll have any bearing, or do you think it's just a brand new game, championship, completely different?
I think it might have a small bearing on the game this weekend. I think that as opposed to the match itself, what's done is that will mean nothing at all. But like that game wasn't important because both sides probably had to win or else they were in serious relegation trouble. Now, Tyrone bounced back well from that game and bet Mayo, and so they'll have absolutely no scars from that game. But Donegal were quite comfortable that game, and like Paddy McBrearty and Michael Langan come back are two serious players who weren't playing in that game, I don't think. So like McBrearty definitely wasn't, and like that's not like that's no real like that. Those lads coming back are going to be a big boost. Like Paddy McBrearty could score 5-6 points easily, and Donegal have had Tyrone's number in the Ulster Championship last year. They bet them fairly well as well. Like so, I think that it's really, I wouldn't say it has absolutely no relevance in the sense that there's a new game. This game means nothing, but Donegal were a good bit better that day, and that will certainly give them confidence. Now, having said that, Donegal, you could argue Donegal went down to Kerry last weekend and got a bit of a beating, and Tyrone went and had a great win up in Castlebar against Mayo. So it's a tricky one to call, but I think Donegal will that game last week meant nothing to them. They kind of left a lot of their key players at home, like so they were kind of have one eye on Tyrone. But I think Donegal in those championships since Bonner and took over a few years ago have been very, very strong, and I think that they might just have enough for Tyrone, as I mentioned earlier.
Okay, and the last match up in Ulster this weekend is another one I know that you spoke about and declared a bit interesting is Gerry and Armagh. So what do you think of that? It probably seems like quite a balanced match, that.
Yeah, I've actually been looking forward to this match now for a long, long time, even since the draw was made. Like because this has the potential to be a brilliant game of football. Like, and I just think that it'll be probably a game of cat and mouse. Like, because Derry are coming in like in the league. Okay, the league probably didn't go great from a Derry perspective. Like, but the reality is after the first two matches, promotion was basically probably not on the card. And the other 5 games, they've won 4, lost 1, and the one they lost was down in Cork against a very good Cork team, and they gave a good account of themselves. So Derry have built momentum. They kind of spoke about building momentum, and they've used the last 2 weeks of the league when there was really nothing to play for in terms of promotion. In the sense they would have taken a mini miracle to see them go up, but they've used it to kind of, well, the first game against Longford they used to build momentum, and they won that game fairly easily. And they played Offaly last weekend, and they won by 2 points, but they were well up at half time. I think they were 8 points up at half time, and evidently they kind of set up in a bit of a defensive enough manner. It was a dress rehearsal for facing Armagh this weekend. They used it purely as preparation for this game. Now, if you look at the Derry team, like they have a few real exceptional footballers. Like Shane McGuigan is one of the best footballers. I'd nearly say he's one of the best footballers in the country. Like he's shown it consistently for Slot Neal over the last few years, and he's starting to really show. He's been very good in the Sigerson Cup for St Mary's too, and he's a really excellent footballer. Is McGuigan. Like he gets on the ball, he'll score. Like there's no stopping him. And now this is where the game will be won and lost by Conor Glass's return. I'd say like he has an absolutely massive hype anyway about him, similar to what Conor McKenna had coming from Tyrone. Now Glass has played as many games. I mentioned playing games in the AFL. Glass has also been a mainstay in AFL first teams. Like so, Glass really has an absolutely huge potential. He was an absolutely outstanding minor footballer, and I think he's back. He has to do a quarantine. I think that's why he couldn't play against Slot Neal in the Derry Club Football Championship. I was at that game, but he's back. He'll be back for Glen, and they're boosted. Malachy O'Rourke has taken the reins there. Another brilliant manager. So Glen, like if you're looking at it, you're probably getting one of the best players and best managers in Ireland coming into Glen next year. And like that Slot Neal team, or not Slot Neal, that Derry team has the Slot Neal as a Chris McKagan, Brendan Rodgers, like Derry football is I'd say Derry football club wise is of a much better standard than Armagh club football. Yet Armagh have operated ahead of Derry the last years. Now Armagh are a funny team. Like they play brilliantly. They control games, but they're prone to self implosion and to letting in a few goals, and then suddenly they look like they're well in control. Then they're letting in 2 or 3 goals in succession, and the game is over, kind of. And Armagh, they're prone to those kind of games. It happened to them. I saw them against Westmeath back in February there, and what happened? They were absolutely in huge control against Westmeath at half time. Then Westmeath got 2 goals, I think it was, all of a sudden. And the game was nearly over from Armagh perspective. And they got a last minute goal to get a draw. And then against Roscommon in the first game back, they were 5-6 points clear. Roscommon came down, got a few goals, and Roscommon won the match by 5 or 6 points. And then against Clare last weekend, something similar happened. They were getting an awful beating against. They were giving Clare a bit of a trimming. And then suddenly with Clare, a big high ball came in, a goal. It was back to a point. Now Armagh pushed on well to win, so they are getting a bit better at maybe responding to adversity and responding to those setbacks. But like Armagh have been at a higher level than Derry the last few years. I think that nobody will dispute that. But like if you look at it pound for pound, there's absolutely nothing between the teams. And I think up in Celtic Park it could be a shock to them. I think Derry could shock Armagh. And like I think that Rory Gallagher was manager of Donegal and they bet Armagh in 2016, and he was manager for Manor when they bet Armagh in 2018. Like so Gallagher has a good record against Armagh in Ulster Championship football. And I think Derry could be in for could spring a surprise victory this week.
Okay, so that's the 3 in the Ulster Championship this weekend. So what we'll do is we'll move down to your own championship down in Leinster there. I know Westmeath aren't playing this weekend, but there's 3 games this weekend to set up around the quarterfinals next week. So we'll start off there. We'll start off with Louth and Longford. What do you make of that game?
I always say the Leinster Championship is actually a very good championship if you took out Dublin. There's a little mini championship between all the other teams. It's actually been quite good. But Dublin have just been so dominant that the once great Leinster Championship has just become not interesting, non-competitive, boring, and it's not exciting. It's by far the least attractive out of the 4 provinces for a championship, to be honest with you, Gerry. But like Longford this weekend, like it's gone to the stage where the league is the championship for a lot of Leinster teams because they want to get up to Division 1 and maybe try and play at a higher level of football, and then that'll help them close the gap with Dublin maybe. But Longford, Longford, were going very well in the league before losing to Down in one of their games, and since then they've kind of struggled. Like they've played there coming back from the lockdown. They went up to Celtic Park and Gerry gave them a bit of a beating, and then they went down to they didn't field in the game against Cork. They gave Cork a walkover. Now that could turn to backfire, but Kilo were given the 48-week suspension from all club activity. And I just don't know, has there been a fallout from that or whatever, but Like, I just don't know where Longford going well at all. It's very hard to know. Pádraig Davison, there's a very, very good coach. Like, and like it's so hard to know how to get on. But like Louth have had an absolutely atrocious league on the other hand. I think they lost all 6 games, or they might have only got 1 point. But then they went and they beat Down last weekend at home. And that result, that could be a match that could nearly change the season for a team like Louth, because they're after beating Down in that match. I think Mickey Quinn is absent for Longford this weekend. He's been their star man for a good few years. And I just think Louth might cause a shock in that game. I think that the momentum from the Down game might push them on. It's in Mullingar, a neutral venue just down the road from my house. But I think that I think Louth might produce a bit of a shock there.
Okay, and another game then was the big sort of, it was essentially a playoff last week between Wexford and Wicklow as to who would end up getting promoted out of Division 4. Wicklow ended up winning the game, but they're playing again this week now in the Championship. So how do you see that one?
Yeah, it's funny, Gerry, because if you went over to America or to the UK and you asked anyone who knows anything about GAA, they'd say the championship is so much more important than the league. You know, like, it's kind of a common thing. Like, but if you look at last weekend's game between Wexford and Wicklow, that was so much more important than this week's game. Do you know? Because this week's game, like, are any of those teams going to win the Leinster Championship realistically or not? Like, you know, like, but like, to build to Division 3, like, they're two of those counties are kind of half urban, like, and they'd be hoping to grow the population, and maybe that'll help boost underage clubs, and they could easily look at moving through the ranks and developing this county, particularly Wicklow for that matter. And Wicklow did that last weekend. They got the win against Wexford that got them up to Division 3, and like, that's a big boost for Wicklow. Like, they're a county with a lot of potential. I always say, like, that they have big towns, suburbs of Dublin, and those towns mightn't have absolutely massive GAA tradition, but there are parts of Wicklow that have massive GAA tradition, and if you can combine if you can get all those people together, you could have the makings of a very, very good team. And like Wicklow, when they had Mick O'Dwyer there was huge interest. So there's an appetite for football in the Garden County, and Wexford are the same. Like, Wexford won 4 in a row All Irelands between 1915 and 1918, and back when World War One was on, and like, they're another proud county, like Wexford are. And like, in 2008 they're in the All Ireland semi final, and they kind of just never really pushed on from that. But like, the hurling is the game in Wexford. Like, hurling is what attracts most of the public, but that doesn't mean it's not a Jew county at all. And it is a Jew county in Wexford. But I think Wicklow, coming in off the last weekend, the win, I think that they'll probably take the positive momentum from that victory. I think they might just do enough to win this weekend.
Okay, and just to round up the fixtures in Munster then, Carlow take on Offaly. So how do you see that one going?
Yeah, I'm probably looking forward to that game the most out of the 3 games, to be honest, Gerry. I think that Offaly are a team that's coming, they're going places. I do like John Maughan as a coach. I think Maughan is a very, very good coach. He's done well with numerous counties now, including his own Mayo. He doesn't take much nonsense. He's very, very straight talker. Maughan is. He expects players to work hard, and he sets teams up to have a go and to try and win the match, which a lot of coaches don't do, and it's been very, very successful for him. Now, Maughan is the type of coach where he loves a challenge. He loves having something to look forward to, and that's why he was speaking in favour of having a tier 2 competition, because he wanted maybe to have an incentive that players could go and win. Now, he'll want to win this match against Carlow and do as far well in the Leinster Championship as they can do from an Offaly perspective. Last year in the league, they actually played quite well in the league, but they still needed a 1 point win away at Sligo on the last day to stay up, while they went into playing Meath in the Leinster Championship. And they very, very nearly bet Meath and Navan, which would have been a huge scalp, because Meath ended up getting to the Super 8. They only lost by a point or two to that game. They were winning the whole match. And then they went and they bet London and bet Sligo in the qualifiers. Nothing maybe too substantial. And they lost narrowly to Laois away in the third round. But they certainly made a lot of progress. This year, Offaly in the league did a lot better. They won a few more matches. The relegation was never really questioned. Now, they ended up with 5 points, so they could have ended up being relegated if results maybe didn't go their way. But having said that, like, the last 2 matches, they played Tipperary away and they played Derry at home, and they did lose both games, but they lost narrowly. So I think Offaly are certainly making progress, but it's hard to know how they're going to be. I think Carlow, on the other hand, Turlough O'Brien resigned in the summer, so he kind of left the post split season resignation. He left. Niall Carew's taken over, and Carew was with Waterford Sligo, did a good job. It's his third job. He was actually very, very close to getting the Westmeath job in 2018, but I think Offaly might just be a small bit ahead of Carlow in development, and I think they might just edge that game this weekend and set themselves up for a meeting with Kildare in the Leinster quarter final.
Okay. Obviously, as you say, the Leinster, it just does feel like it's obviously going to be Dublin. Do you think do you see any challenge at all coming within Leinster, or do you think the Dubs are a cert for the semi-finals?
I think Kildare and Meath will give Dublin a game. I think that one of those teams will, if the two of those end up in the semi-final, I think that the winner of that might give Dublin a half a game. But I think that's probably the most likely. But do I see Dublin being beaten? I don't do, but I think Meath and Kildare lost by 15 points, Dublin last year. Meath lost by 16 points. If they could even have that deficit, it would be huge if they could get within 10. Kildare were close in 2017. Well, when I say close, they lost by 9 points, which is a lot closer than the other team was to Dublin. But like Dublin's dominance in Leinster has been huge in recent years. So I think that should stay this year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move down to Munster. I know there's a game on Saturday evening, so we'll start there. Waterford versus Limerick. How do you see that one playing out?
That'll be a good game. Waterford Limerick. It's probably one of those games where it's nearly like it's the best chance either team have a win the match this year is in the Munster first round. And like this year, Waterford and Limerick can realistically aspire to be in a Munster final, like, because in other years you'd be on the same side of the draw as Cork and Kerry, and it would be very, very hard to see them getting to a Munster final. But this year, those teams like Clare, Tip, Limerick, and Waterford are on the one side. Now, Tipperary and Clare might be a small bit ahead of them, but like Limerick bet Tipperary last year in the Munster quarter final, Waterford very, very nearly bet Clare. So like this is the year where players from those counties can maybe look at themselves as having a chance of reaching a provincial decider. Like Waterford, Limerick, look, both teams are in Division 4. Limerick won Division 4, so they'd be favourites to win that game. And they might just have enough to get over Waterford. Now, even with the winning Division 4, it would be a disaster for Limerick if they were to go out Munster at the first hurdle, having like it would kind of undo an awful lot of progress that they got from winning the league. But I think that Limerick might just be enough, but they'll have to work hard for it. Like Waterford they'll set up to be hard to beat. They'll be proud. They've always kind of done well. There's probably not another team in the county that loses as many matches by 1 point, or in the country even, that loses as many matches by 1 point as Waterford. So they'll give a good account of that, but I think Limerick might just have enough to get to a semi-final.
Okay, and the other semi-final then is Tipperary versus Clare. So what about that one? How do you see it?
Yeah, that's the Munster quarter-final as well. I'd say again, Gerry, that's one of the games I'm actually looking forward to a lot this weekend. I think this is a game where you have two counties with absolutely nothing between them. Now, if you look at Clare, they were promoted in 2016 from Division 3, and since then they've been a mainstays in Division 2. They have Colin Collins as a manager, and Collins is a very, very, very good coach. Like he's absolutely worked wonders with Clare football. Like he just got the most out of very, very limited. Well, I won't say for limited resources. That's not a fair statement, but he's got the most out of players who weren't achieving beforehand, and he's really just taken to new levels. And he's the type of coach where if they're at a level, he wants to go to the next level. And they kind of they do things in a very, very structured way. Clare in every game is kind of taken on its own, and they always kind of give themselves a chance then in a one-off game. Now they're playing Tipperary at the weekend, and Tipperary have nearly been the opposite in recent years, where they've been the type of county. They won the league in 2017, Division 3. They've been in the All-Ireland football semi-final the year before. And the year before that, they've been in the All-Ireland under-21 final. And they knocked out a Dublin team in All-Ireland under-21 semi-final, which ended up having an awful lot of lads who were on the Dublin team that won 5 All-Irelands in a row. So like Tipperary had very, very, very good underage football teams. I think they won the All-Ireland minor in 2011 in football. So like Tipperary, but then they're a type of county. They were promoted in 2017, stayed up in 2018, went down narrowly in 2019. Clare bet them in a relegation. It wasn't officially a relegation playoff, but it was a game where whoever lost was very likely to be relegated. So I think that Clare have been more consistent than Tip, although Tip are probably capable of producing, of maybe beating a top team. They probably beat a top team maybe quicker than Clare would. So it's all very much up in the air. I think Michael Quinlivan is one of the best footballers in the country. He's back playing for Tip this weekend. Now Clare looks set to be without Gary Brennan for the year. Brennan didn't go. He was available to play anyway after the when the game was resumed, and he wasn't available for the first quarter. They've stayed up in Division 2 on a head-to-head. They're going to be going into Tip with no fear whatsoever. Now, Tip are actually slight favourites. I think this is the year for Clare where Collins, the one maybe, I won't say criticism you can have, but the one thing that he hasn't done in his tenure is get to a Munster final yet. And he'd absolutely love, like, he's actually said that he'd love to win a Munster championship, like, and like, he'd be saying that with a genuine incentive of actually going and winning it. You know, that kind of way. Like, do we know he wouldn't be in tomorrow's victories or any of that? Like, so they're playing they're playing this weekend. Like, this is the year maybe for Clare. They have a great chance of getting to a Munster final. Now, Kerry have had their number in recent years, but they'll see if Cork can beat Kerry, they might have a chance of beating Cork in a final maybe. So I think Clare and Tip will really, really look forward to this game. Now, this is only a Munster quarterfinal. The winner just has to play Waterford Limerick in the semi before playing Cork or Kerry in a final. So I think Clare might just do enough, and I think Clare might edge Tip this weekend, but it'll be a classic. Clare might just have a bit more experience and know how with consistency to get over the line.
Okay, that wraps up Munster. So the last one then is Connacht, where Leitrim are taking on Mayo. Mayo will obviously be big favourites for that one, but what's your thoughts? Do you think Leitrim can spring a surprise, or do you think it should be comfortable enough win for Mayo?
I think it'll be a comfortable enough win for Mayo, to be honest with you, Gerry. Like, Mayo, James Horan, in all his years in charge, I think the first year he was there, London very, very nearly bet them in Connacht in the first round. And since then, they've had absolutely, they got through London after extra time. And since then, they've had no real trouble against the smaller teams when Horan was there. So I think that he'll have them included into this weekend. And I think that they'll get over Leitrim. I think Mayo, while they'll definitely be taking things on a game-by-game basis, I think throughout the league, they were trying to blood players. They were using a tactical side. Everything was kind of set for the championship for this Mayo team. The championship is the be-all and end-all. They got their league medal last year. They won the league. This is the championship. This is their year. You know, the league, they'd be very disappointed to get relegated, but I think they learned a lot from the league and Mayo on the other hand. So I think Leitrim, they went out. They did okay against Tip last again, but they still ultimately, they were promoted from Division 3 and then they got relegated to Division 4, like straight back down. So they haven't achieved their main goal this year, and like they're going to be probably knocked out this weekend and they'll be out. That'll be the year over. So I think Mayo, they'll probably just do enough, and I think they'll have their sights firmly set on bigger sights than this weekend.
Yeah, I think the way the draw works out then, obviously if Mayo do what we expect them to do, they've got Roscommon, so you're probably looking like that could be a good game on paper, and then you would probably expect Galway to beat Sligo in the other semi-final. So it certainly looks like, although there's not obviously many teams in the Connacht Championship, but it certainly looks like there's at least 3 teams that probably you wouldn't be massively surprised if they won it. Who would you maybe tip to come out of those 3? Who would you say has got the best chance of winning?
Yeah, well, that's actually probably an understatement that you wouldn't any of those 3 could win it, because Mayo haven't won a Connacht title in 5 years, and they dominated Connacht beforehand, but they haven't won it since 2015. And Galway have won 2, and Roscommon have won 2 in the meantime. And I don't think there's been any other province where there's been 3 winners in the last 5 years. I think Monaghan in 2015 they won it, but the Donegal and Tyrone dominated since that. Like, and Munster, Kerry have won every title for the last 7 or 8 years. So like, I think that I think this is going to be Mayo's year, though. I think the straight knockout element will suit Mayo, because like, while they haven't done well in Connacht in recent years, they've beaten Roscommon in a knockout game and they've beaten Galway in a knockout game. So the record in knockout football has been very, very good. Well, that's why I think this is really knockout. So there's no messing about. Now, I think Roscommon are actually a very, very underrated team. Like, every year they consistently kind of perform. Like, and there's no reason to think this year is going to be any different. So I think Roscommon will really make Mayo work for a victory in the semi-final if they do get over Leitrim. And I think that Galway will really make them work for a victory in the final. But I think this could be Mayo's year in Connacht. I think that James Horney probably would have prided himself on his record in Connacht when in his first tenure. While they couldn't get over the line in the All-Ireland, they always got over the line in the province. So I think that Mayo might just have enough for Connacht this year.
Okay. Well, that's all the football games. There's plenty of action certainly taking place over Saturday and Sunday, and you know, you throw on top the hurling on top of that as well. So it certainly looks like it's going to be a good weekend. My thanks to Conor for joining me to discuss the football championship. Hopefully within sort of a couple of minutes here we'll be back again and discussing the hurling championship. and hopefully you can join us then. If obviously there would be the people there, there's a few people checking in and out and stuff, watching it live, and it stays on the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. So whatever one you're watching on, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow for the rest of the videos. And as I say, if you're not watching it live, our thanks for joining us at a later time. That's all for football for now, and hopefully you'll join us in a few minutes for the hurling, which will pop up on your feed. Thank you.